So on August 13th, we got a story in the news about the death of British actor Kenny Baker. And he's famous for being R2-D2 in the Star Wars movies. But he was also famous for this movie called Time Bandits. And this movie, I didn't even realize it, but it actually connects to my first ever YouTube copyright strike. And I had made a video about this movie, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. And in a little bit, I'll explain a little bit more of why this is so significant in regards to my copyright claims and what I think is possibly going on. Also, the reason that it's connected to the movie Time Bandits is because Time Bandits, according to the director Terry Gilliam, Time Bandits was the first of a trilogy of his movies. He called them a trilogy of imagination. So this was the first one that had the R2-D2 guy in it. The second movie in the trilogy was called Brazil. You know, think about the Olympics that are going on right now in Brazil. And the third movie just so happens to be the movie that I made a YouTube video on and got my first copyright strike ever on. And the reason that I bring it up, you know, it might not seem like that big of a deal. Oh, I got a copyright strike because I played clips of a movie and whatnot. But they didn't give it a copyright strike for months, and then they copyrighted it at a certain time. I fixed the video, and the part that they wanted me to fix was the part that involved Robin Williams. And I fixed the video, took out a whole big part of him, put it back up on YouTube. They waited like another 3 months before they gave it another copyright claim, and it was all about Robin Williams once again, the parts with Robin Williams in there. But it doesn't make that much sense that they would let me have it on there that long, then all of a sudden they give me a copyright strike, I put it back up there, it's on there for more months, then they give me a copyright strike again. You would think that it would come right down, you know? So anyway, let's look at some of the gematria of Kenny Baker and R2-D2 and why he died on August 13th. So in Britain, they write the date as 13/8 for August 13th. August 13th, 13/8, right? A lot like 138. If you write out R2-D2, it equals 138 in gematria. Also, Olympic Games that are going on right now. Olympic Games equals 138. Donald Trump just constantly in the news. Donald Trump equals 138. They also let us know that this Kenny Baker, he was 3'8". And I've also been talking a lot about this Prince connection, the royal connection. Also, the word election equals 38. So we got election equals 38. Prince equals 38. He was 3'8". The word death also equals 38. Anyway, Kenny Baker also dies 239 days after the newest Star Wars movie came out, The Force Awakens. And that just brings back another story that I had talked about of Olivia Munn at the 88th Grammys saying that the robot takeover will be on August 27th, which is normally the 239th day of the year. The day that she said that just so happened to be the 239th day of the 239th year of the United States even. And the day before, we got the story of Draymond Green at halftime of the basketball game saying, "I am not a robot." And so, I mean, just super interesting. Also, if you write out Golden Gate in Jewish gematria, it equals 239. You know, the Jews believe that the Messiah is going to come from the Golden Gate. And think about San Francisco in regards to the new Terminator movie. They have the whole scene where there's the destruction on the Golden Gate Bridge. So, you know, who knows? Just find it interesting. He's a robot. And then I remember Olivia Munn saying this. And interesting, it was at the 88th Grammys and the Adventures of Baron Munchausen video, my first copyright strike. That was all I talked about was the number 88 and how it's, you know, connected to time. Literally, even the guy's hair in the movie, they have it permed up and it looks like an 88, an 8 on both sides of his head even. And even just think about Back to the Future. I've talked a lot about Back to the Future being super connected to last year, but also to this year. Back to the Future, the speed for time travel, 88 miles an hour. I've even talked about this in regards to a lot of satanic ritual kind of stuff. So, the first movie in this trilogy then is called Time Bandits, and that's the one that Kenny Baker, or the guy who plays R2-D2, was in. I find it interesting that he dies at the age of 81. This movie comes out in 1981. The Ronald Reagan assassination attempt is even connected to all of this. It happened in 1981 as well. It just so happened to happen 7 months, 7 days before this movie Time Bandits was released in 1981. And the reason that 7/7 is so significant is because July 7th just so happens to be the 188th day of the year. That leaves 177 days. Now, when you go back to my copyright claim videos, the video that I made about Baron Munchausen, I put it out on 9/19 of 2014. 9/19 is the 262nd day of the year. I got my first copyright strike on March 15th, right? The Ides of March that connects to a political assassination of Julius Caesar in the year 44. But if you go from 9/19 to the day I got my first copyright strike, it just so happened to be 177 days. I fixed the video, like I said, put it back up, and they didn't give it a copyright strike again until June 8th, 6/8. And if you go from 9/19 to June 8th, it's a span of 262 days. The 177th day just so happens to be June 26th, 6/26. There's been lots of coding to this date. Last year, Pope Francis went to Cuba on 9/19. 26 weeks, 2 days later, Obama went to Cuba. And then Hillary Clinton clinched the nomination on 6/8 or 6/7, whatever it was. It was because of the leap year. It was 262 days after Pope Francis went to Cuba. Clinton in Gematria even equals 262. The headline on CNN said, "The struggle continues," and it had Bernie Sanders with his arm up in the air. The struggle continues in Gematria equals 262. And there's a whole lot more connections to 262. I'll leave a link to my YouTube copyright video strikes playlist, and I even talk about how Ramona equals 26 and 62, and the word queen equals 26 and 62. There's a whole lot of connections. I know it's a ton of information, a ton of videos. I'll leave a link to this blog even, but there is just a ton of stuff going on with the 262 that's connected to September 19th. That's what I feel like they've been showing me for a long time now. We've even had all of the train stuff going on in the news, just tons of Amtrak derailments that are connected to all kinds of stuff. Had Jared from Subway go to prison last year. You had Nicholas Winton, the guy who saved the Jews on the train. In the movie Back to the Future, the movie even ends with the train. They go back to the 1985 because they get pushed by the train, then the train destroys the time machine. Just tons of train symbolism, but James Garfield, one of the assassinated presidents, got shot at a train station, died 79 days later, and he died on 9/19. Also, in regards to Ronald Reagan, his wife Nancy Reagan just died this year. Remember, she died in Los Angeles the same day that the Warriors somehow magically lost to the Lakers. But just before she died, the day before actually, I was getting YouTube trolled on some of my old videos, and they were leaving comments, and I couldn't figure out what the deal was with it. And it connected back to my video about the death of Omaha police officer Carrie Orozco, who just so happened to be born on 9/19, and the last time that an Omaha police officer had died in the line of duty the same way that she had died, He died on 9/19, and then the next day, we got the death of Nancy Reagan. And Nancy Reagan in Gematria equals 103 in simple Gematria. September 19th is the day that leaves 103 days left in the year. I also find it very interesting that in English Gematria she equaled 618, and in Jewish Gematria she also equaled 618, which, very rare. I've rarely ever see this. I can't even think of another example where something in English Gematria equals the same in Jewish Gematria, and I thought, that's pretty weird. So I typed in 618 to see what it came out to in Gematria, and interestingly enough, it just so happened to equal 199 in simple Gematria, and in Jewish Gematria, 919. So 2 days, if you write these as dates, 19/9, it's September 19th. If you write 9/19, it's September 19th. Just once again showing me the date of September 19th. So also, I find it interesting then, in regards to Donald Trump and R2-D2 equaling the same as Donald Trump of 138, we get the story on 13/8. Clear back on the day after Easter, we got a story about people who found this gravestone of Donald Trump on Easter Sunday when they were walking through the graveyard and whatnot. So if you go from Easter Sunday and you go to September 19th, it's a span of 177 days. 177, of course, connecting to my first copyright strike ever on YouTube, also connecting to the date 9/19 and the number 262 or 626. Also, Trump in Gematria equals 88. Of course, connecting back to the video, because I talked about all the 88s in that video, just lots of stuff. Anyway, if you haven't, I'm going to leave a link to this video, Zachary K. Hubbard's video on Robert De Niro comparing Donald Trump to the movie Taxi Driver, and Taxi Driver super connected to just political assassinations. It's connected to the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt as well. It stars Jodie Foster, and in the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt, it was John Hinckley Jr. who had tried to kill him, and he was trying to do it to impress Jodie Foster. Literally, that guy we had a story just the other day, or like a couple weeks ago, about how he's going to get out of prison even. But he leaves a link to his blog and other videos, I believe, in this video. So please check it out. There's a lot of information, but it all makes complete sense to what I'm talking about, and especially in regards to Robert De Niro. So I talked about how the trilogy, I said that Time Bandits was the first of the trilogy, and the second one was the movie called Brazil. The interesting thing about this movie, not only just for the fact that the Olympics are in Brazil right now, but it also stars Robert De Niro. And Robert De Niro, basically, if you haven't ever seen this movie, it's basically a movie about a world that's similar to the story in the book 1984. Oh, it even mentions it here. Crazy. I didn't even know that, but it's very similar to that. They have all these government jobs and lots of high security, and the whole movie is about how there's terrorists or whatever, they're trying to stop the terrorists. Robert De Niro just so happens to be one of the main terrorists. So anyway, the reason that Robert De Niro also sticks out so much, so he's in this movie. I'm going to show some stuff about this movie and how there's predictive programming for 9/11, but I want to get the point across. So my YouTube copyright strike, the reason they kept striking it was supposedly because of the Robin Williams clip in this video, and Robin Williams is the king of the moon. And, in regards to the Prince symbolism and all kinds of stuff, if you go through my copyright strike claims videos, some of the most recent ones were after I put out a video of the death of Prince the singer, and Prince died on the night of a full moon. The Simpsons, on the 112th day of the year, the Simpsons killed him on 11/2. They killed him with Neil Armstrong, the first guy to walk on the moon. Robin Williams, the king of the moon. Also, one of the things that I pointed out in this video was that he's just a floating head, and supposedly, he committed suicide by hanging himself. Basically, just reminds me of him separating his head from his body. His body's like walking around trying to get on his wife and whatnot when they're on the moon. But anyway, I want to show the 9/11 symbolism in this movie, Brazil, and then I'll come back and tell you why Robin Williams and Robert De Niro have an interesting connection in regards to Hillary Clinton, Muhammad Ali, even Back to the Future in regards to Marty McFly or Michael J. Fox. Anyway, this movie then, so the movie literally starts off and they show you 8:49 p.m., which is 11 minutes until 9. And in England or Great Britain, they write the date 9/11 as 11/9, right? So the 9/11, he's even imagining that he's floating through the clouds and whatnot. Just reminds you of maybe an airplane. The whole point of the movie is that the government makes a mistake and they arrest this guy named Archibald Buttle, and it was supposed to be a guy named Archibald Tuttle. But when they go to this guy's house or whatever, it literally says that Archibald Tuttle, he lives on 412 North Tower. I mean, when I think of North Tower, I instantly think of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. North Tower in Gematria just so happens to have identical Gematria to Archibald Tuttle, 57 and 156. Remember, the 156 prime number is 9/11. The word Scottish Rite also equals 57, and the highest degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry is 33. If you write out 33, it also equals 156. It also says the movie's 142 minutes long. The word terrorist also equals 142. Also, the movie came out on 2/22 in the United Kingdom, and it's 2 hours, 22 minutes long. Pretty interesting. But it's also 142 minutes. The word terrorist equals 142 minutes. The 9/11 attacks lasted 1 hour, 42 minutes. A lot like 142. The word Freemason equals 42. If you write out 42, it equals 142. The guy that the government actually arrested and killed him, and it was supposed to be Archibald Tuttle, but Archibald Buttle equals 138 in Gematria. Just interesting that I would watch the movie on, August 13th, 13/8, and I watched it in regards to R2-D2 that equals 138, and Donald Trump that equals 138. There's even another point in this movie in regards to Back to the Future even. Remember, Doc Brown discovers time travel on November 5th, 11/5 or 5/11. The word Saturn equals 5/11. Saturn is the keeper of time. But in this movie, his clock's messed up, and then he punches his clock, and the clock switches over to this. And it's on the little hands on the 5, the big hands on the 11, the 5/11 reference. No doubt in my mind that's why they did that, because they had to do the reference to Saturn. This movie then even named Brazil after the song Aquarela do Brasil, and in Gematria that equals 156. Once again, the 9/11 reference. It was written in 1939. The 9/11 attacks in New York. New York equals 39. Empire equals 39. NY equals 39. It was even founded on a date numerology, it became a state on a date numerology of 39. New York, a super 39 state. If you write out Brazil in Gematria, it equals 68, which is interesting because 1968 was the year that 9/11 became the emergency dialing code. It was 33 years before 9/11. Construction of the World Trade Center even began in the year 68. It actually, believe it or not, even began on 6/8 of 68. '68 was also the year that George Bush graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones, the president during 9/11. The guy who even flew into the North Tower, supposedly his name was Mohammed Atta, who was born in 1968, so he was 33 years old. That was the first tower to get hit. His full name, Muhammad El Amir Awad El Sayed Atta. What a name, but his full name equals 138 and also 318 in Gematria. So, hopefully you're still with me. Just wanted to point out the 9/11 symbolism in this movie called Brazil. Interesting, the Olympics are in Brazil this year. So anyway, in regards to Robin Williams then being the topic of my first ever copyright strike, I went back and watched a whole bunch of movies with Robin Williams in them at the time, and there's a movie that he's in with Robert De Niro called Awakenings. And Robert De Niro has this crazy disease or whatever, he can't move his body, and Robin Williams is the doctor, and he figures out that this L-Dopa drug actually is a temporary cure. He doesn't know that at the time, but he thinks that it would be a cure for this disease that Robert De Niro has and other people have in the hospital. But L-Dopa is actually a drug that is used in Parkinson's disease. And if you remember, right after Robin Williams died, or committed suicide supposedly, they said that part of the reason was he had shown symptoms of Parkinson's disease. Now, when I think of Parkinson's disease, I think of two main people. I think of Muhammad Ali, and I think of Michael J. Fox, the Back to the Future guy and whatnot. Remember, Robin Williams died at the age of 63. He was even in another movie called, What Dreams May Come, and when he dies in that movie, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character even says that he hadn't seen him forever. Last time I seen him, he was 63 on the cardiac ward or something like that, So, 63, something special with Robin Williams. But remember, Muhammad Ali actually died on 6/3. Just wanted to point it out, Muhammad Ali dies on 6/3. He even takes the name after the Prophet Muhammad, who supposedly died at the age of 63. Nancy Reagan dies on 3/6, or it could also be written as 6/3. Donald Trump's birthday, also 3 months, 6 days before the 9/19 date that I talked about earlier in the video. Also, in my last video, I talked about Monty Williams, the death of Monty Williams' wife, and how it connected to the Virginia plane wreck that happened on August 12th. Just so happens to be a span of 185 days. Donald John Trump equals 185. Monty Williams equals 185. But it's also a span of 6 months and 3 days. This plane wreck, I also talked about how it happened at Shannon Airport. And when I typed it on Wikipedia, the only Shannon Airport I could find was one that was in Ireland, and had a whole bunch of other connections, but there was this President Airline crash that happened on September 10th, 1961, 38 days after Obama was born, and the plane actually just so happened to be called the Theodore Roosevelt, which sticks out a lot because Robin Williams was in this movie Night at the Museum. He was in all 3 of them, but he played the character of Theodore Roosevelt. I talked about how when Obama gave his final State of the Union, he went to Omaha, Nebraska the next day, then he went to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I mean, just think about the Alton Sterling shooting. We also got the Philando Castile shooting on the same day in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. When Obama was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, he gave a speech at McKinley High School. When Theodore Roosevelt was the vice president, William McKinley was the president, but he was assassinated, and then Theodore Roosevelt became the president. Just before McKinley was assassinated, Theodore Roosevelt gave a famous speech about carrying the big stick in Falcon Heights, Minnesota, where Philando Castile had died, right? And then Obama gives a speech in McKinley High School. Baton Rouge is named after the red stick, marking the hunting boundaries of the Huma people. So there's definitely something connected to Teddy Roosevelt. In the last video I showed how he's connected to Chicago. He died in the year 1919. He was even connected to Philadelphia, as he was born on Philadelphia's 176th anniversary. And while I'm here, Robin Williams, he died in 2014. Another guy that's in this movie, in Night at the Museum, Mickey Rooney, he also died in 2014. I mean, interesting, he was born on September 23rd, the day that's super connected to Pope Francis's visit to the United States. He also dies on 4/6. The word sacrifice equals 46. He even dies 4 months, 6 days before Robin Williams dies. Interesting, too, also a span of 128 days. Pennsylvania became a state on a date numerology of 128. William Penn, who founded Pennsylvania, William Penn equals 128. And if you recall, Joan Rivers also died that same year. Remember, people talked about Joan Rivers being the Joker, and then you had Robin Williams, a lot like the Batman and Robin. If you go from Mickey Rooney's death to Joan Rivers, who, interesting too, dies on 9/4. Nancy Reagan dies at the age of 94, and Joan Rivers dies at the age of 81, connecting back to the R2-D2 guy, and the assassination attempt of Ronald Reagan in the movie Time Bandits. But from Mickey Rooney's death to her death, a span of 152 days. The word Pennsylvania equals 152. Joan Rivers, even born on 6/8, right? 262 days after 9/19. She dies 88 days after her birthday. Once again, connecting to the stuff I talked about in the beginning of the video. And she talked about Michelle Obama being a tranny, right before she died. Michelle Obama, born on January 17th, a lot like 117. And I guess this calculator doesn't do it because it doesn't do the S exception. But if you write out Parkinson's disease with the S and the K exception, it even equals 117. And think about it in regards to Hillary Clinton. Right now there's the little stuff going around about Hillary Clinton possibly having Parkinson's disease. That's why she did the whole short circuit thing or whatever, and she was shaken. And there's been other examples. Whether it's real or not, it's still interesting that there's stories going on. And Alex Jones was even one of the first people to bring it out, which is even funnier. But Parkinson's disease in regards to Hillary Clinton, in regards to Michael J. Fox, in regards to Robin Williams, in regards to Muhammad Ali. And hopefully I don't get too off topic here. If you write out the word transgendered even equals 134. Just like King Charles III. In the movie Time Bandits, that has R2-D2, the actor he was also famous for. In that movie, the whole movie is about these midgets who work for God, they call him the Supreme Being, that equals 134. And basically, they steal this map it's a map to all these holes in the fabric of the universe, so they can go back in time, and basically they're going back to try to steal all the money and whatnot to become rich. And then eventually they meet the darkness or the hell or whatever you want to call it. And at the very end, the Supreme Being comes back and basically destroys it all and says he knew what was going on the whole time. But just interesting, Supreme Being equals 134. The Supreme Being in this movie is even played by a guy named Ralph Richardson. And I've been talking, if you've been following my videos, about a Ralph theme. And literally the actor who plays the Supreme Being, his name is Ralph Richardson. But 134, also a number that YouTube was showing me by copyright striking my videos. I talked about thought it was something to do with May 13th. It was the 134th day this year. Even if you write it out as a date, it's 13. It's 13/5, a lot like 135. In gematria, if you write out 134, it equals 115. If you write out 135, it equals 115. Scottish Rite Freemasonry equals 115. Also, another date that they were showing me, or at least the number, was the number 165 in regards to a video that I made about the movie 22 Jump Street, and they gave me a random copyright strike or copyright claim just like the Baron Munchausen video, but the word 22 equals 165. The movie came out on the 165th day of the year. I made a video about it 165 days after the movie came out. A whole bunch of weird stuff. Even when they started showing me them three numbers, it just so happened to be on my Prince video, like right after I put this Prince video up on 4/23, and it just so happens to be 165 days after my 33rd birthday. Also, a span of 5 months, 13 days, once again reminding me of May 13th. Obama had just did the whole turn into a demon on Snapchat, and whatever the phrase that he said, that phrase added up to 513. The word Scottish Rite also equals 165. And what's even more interesting, so 4/23 is the day that King Charles II was coronated, and I've been covering for probably a year or more the connection to the royal family and a whole bunch of stuff in regards to the English Civil War since, at least the English Civil War stuff, since around January of this year for sure. But so King Charles II was one of the kings during the English Civil War. Also, that 22 Jump Street movie came out on the 165th day of the year, which was June 13th. It also just so happens to be the day that King Charles I got married to his wife Henrietta Maria. And when I put my video out 165 days later, that was Henrietta Maria's birthday. I mean, I can't even remember all of it, but I've made videos on it. Tons of stuff. Even this date, 4/23, can be written as 23/4. The English Civil War began on the 234th day of the year. Also, in regards to King Charles I, then, he was the king when the English Civil War began. His birthday just so happens to be November 19th. And this date is very special as well. November 19th, the small way, equals 91. September 19th equals 91 as well. And think about September 19th in regards to 91. You know, 91 and 19 are literally, it's 91 both ways, like a palindrome. 91 also a number I've seen a lot in regards to death and elimination. World War II even began on 9/1. But in regards to James Garfield, the assassinated president, he died on 9/19, but his birthday was November 19th, right? So the same day as King Charles I. The Gettysburg Address was also given on November 19th. Also, Jodie Foster then, going back to the Robert De Niro stuff, Jodie Foster even born on November 19th. November 19th, also a special day in regards to Freemasonry, but also, oddly enough, it connects to my life I talked about. So November 23rd, or November 19th, is the 323rd day of the year that leaves 42 remaining. Remember, Freemason equals 42. 323, my name equals 323, the word Lucifer equals 323, and I talked about 134 days after my 33rd birthday, there was a fifth blood moon, a partial blood moon of the tetrad, that happened on March 23rd, 323, and there's just been something super significant, I don't know, it blows me away. And the reason that it was so significant being 134 days was because King Charles III equals 134. Also, the movie Money Monster came out on May 13th. I talked a whole lot about that movie. They were showing the 923 even in the background. Jodie Foster just so happened to be the director of that movie. I also wonder, just in regards to her last name being Foster, I've talked a lot about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. and how they won the Foster Farms Bowl last year. And I even talked about how they're connected to the Miami Dolphins, and the Miami Dolphins even picked up Arian Foster, who tore his Achilles tendon last year. You know, in regards to 91, Cameron Wake, who was number 91, tore his Achilles last year, just like Arian Foster, who's now a player for the Miami Dolphins. Also, I don't remember her full name being up here the other day. Maybe it was. I can't completely tell if when they changed it in the history here, but Alicia Christian Foster in gematria has very interesting gematria into stuff that I've been talking about. Her name equals 219, which is a very, very important number. I'm not quite sure of what exactly the importance is, but August 7th is a day directly connected to the Philadelphia train wreck of 2015. It was 87 days after the Philadelphia train wreck. 8/7 was 87 days after that. 8/7 is the 219th day. This year, it was the 8/7 was the exact halfway point of Queen Elizabeth's 64th anniversary being queen and her 65th anniversary being queen. If you go from the Philadelphia train wreck to Pope Francis's birthday, it was a span of 219 days. If you went from August 7th to the 3rd anniversary of Pope Francis being the Pope, it was a span of 219 days. Prince Charles also, his birthday comes 219 days before Prince William's. I also talked about how Prince of Wales, which Prince Charles is, equals 146, and May 26th is the 146th day that leaves 219 days in the year. United Kingdom also equals 146. So, like I said, I don't know the complete significance of it, but I know there's something very important to this number, 219. The NBA All-Star Game this year in 2017 even is on 219. One other thing about Jodie Foster even went to Yale University. Pull it up here. And think of Yale University in regards to George Bush and Skull and Bones. And what's interesting, she went there, and her first year was in 1980 and 81, the same year of the Reagan assassination attempt, right? Also, of course, the year that the movie Time Bandits came out, and the age that the R2-D2 guy, Kenny Baker, also died. There really is just something super special to Jodie Foster. Even her name in gematria, Jodie Foster, equals 63, once again reminding me of Robin Williams and Muhammad Ali and whatnot. And Foster, I even think of the movie Hook, because Robin Williams was the orphan. The real-life guy who was Peter Pan was even named after. He even killed himself at the age of 63 by jumping in front of a train. And oddly enough, in regards to Peter Pan, it reminds me of the Elkhorn, Nebraska boy who got ate by the alligator, which I also talked about in my YouTube copyright stuff. Just considering all of that story was connected to tons of pieces to my own personal life and also the area that I live in. And oddly enough, I'm even connected to Peter Pan and whatnot. In gematria, I equal 95, just like Peter Pan, just like alligator. And I talked about how Peter Pan and alligator also equal 41. And I just so happen to live on a town that's located on 41 degrees north, 95 degrees west. And in that video, I even talked about Erling, Iowa. This is a town where the movie and the book, The Exorcism, partially is based off of. And this year, actually in 2 days, it will be the 88th anniversary of that exorcism beginning, on 8/1/8, a lot like 81. It even says the town had its start in 1881. Even has ties to September 23rd, and it's named after Albert J. Erling, who equals 134, like King Charles III. Tons of stuff, I even mentioned how the town that I live in, the reason that it even is a town still is because it was saved by Freemasons after the town supposedly killed the last keeper of the sacred pole of the Omaha Indians, Chief Yellow Smoke. He died in the year 68. Dunlap equals 68. Interesting too, it says the town was incorporated in 1871, the same year that the Major League Baseball began on 5/4. Then 5 months, 4 days later was the Great Chicago Fire. Baseball also equals 54. So I have no idea if anything big is going to happen on 9/19. I've been talking about it, like I said, since 2015, early in 2015, and nothing happened last year. So possibly this year. Who really knows? But in a crazy roundabout way, it literally does connect back to all of this stuff that I'm talking about. And there's no doubt in my mind they're giving me copyright claims and whatnot because I'm supposed to figure out some type of riddle that they're giving me, especially when the death of R2-D2 or Kenny Baker connects to my first copyright strike ever. So, I got a lot of thinking to do. There's something more that I'm missing. I always feel that same way about tons of stuff. There's just so much information and so many things that all of these articles are actually somehow interrelated a lot of times. Also, in regards to the R2-D2 guy dying on August 13th, August 13th is, if you go to 9/19, it's the exact halfway point between August 13th and Hillary Clinton's birthday. I really think what the big piece of the puzzle is just they're trying to tell me about a political assassination, especially a lot with the Theodore Roosevelt stuff and how it connects to Robin Williams. And even the Parkinson's disease is very interesting, just in regards to some of the stuff going around about Hillary Clinton, and also how it connects back to, Robin Williams' death connected to Joan Rivers' death as well. And Parkinson's disease even equals 117. Muhammad Ali born on 117. Michelle Obama born on January 17th as well. And there's also something going on with the robot stuff. That's why it's R2-D2 dying. You remember we got this story a while back about the robot who supposedly said, "I will destroy all humans." Then I talked about the Olivia Munn stuff in the beginning of the video. Robin Williams also connected to that as well, as he was in Bicentennial Man. This year also, like I said, Olivia Munn said that the robot takeover, which I don't believe will happen, but there's something symbolic about her saying that. The robot takeover will be August 27th, which this year, since it's a leap year, is the 240th day of the year. On July 4th, we entered the 240th year of the United States, but August 27th is Obama's 7th year, 7th month, and 7th day of being the president. If you write out 240, it even equals 81, a number of super importance in this latest story. So, just documenting it. Like everything, I'm just going to continue to follow the story, see how it's all put together. I know if you are new to this and you haven't been following me, it's a whole lot to take in and put together, but it really all does go together. And sometimes it takes multiple months before you can actually figure out what the whole point of all of it actually was. So, just keep following it. But gonna go. Have a good one. Thanks for listening.